Hi, Alan Cox here. Today we're going to move into part three and the final part of our data lifecycle management little mini series. In part one, we talked about retention policies, and in part two, we talked about retention labels, label policies, and some auto policies thrown in there. And today we're going to talk about MRM policy, so message records management policy. These policies are in Purview and they are considered legacy. Microsoft does recommend moving away from them. However, I do find some valuable use cases specific to Exchange Online mailboxes. They do not retain any other work stream other than Exchange Online. But the key advantage to them is if you need a different policy or action based on different folders within your mailbox. So inbox has a different policy, deleted items folder may have a different policy, sent items may have a different policy. That's where you can apply these tags to those folders and then bundle that up into a single policy. That's going to be our topic today as we wrap up our data lifecycle management. We're going to talk about MRM, message records management, retention for Exchange Online. Let's get started. All right, now I want to go through a different type of retention. And we've talked about it just a little bit, but so just as a recap, let's go over here. We are in purview.microsoft.com, and we're going to go to Data Lifecycle Management, where we're going to look at, we looked at retention policies. We talked about retention labels. Remember, policies are kind of more container level. They're kind of at the high level, a mailbox, a SharePoint site, all that. And then labels can carve out some exceptions to that. So, or be more granular for, say, a specific type of item, a sensitive information type, etc., right? So where we can say, okay, we're going to retain the mailbox for 3 years, but anything in that mailbox that is sensitive based on the label, so it could be credit card number, social security number, account number, etc., I want you to extend that and identify and hold those items for maybe 7 years or whatever the case. Now I want to talk about this Exchange legacy MRM policies, retention policies. So this is message records management. Now, I will tell you that Microsoft says we do not recommend using these options except for moving items from primary to an archive mailbox. This does have some archiving capabilities, Exchange Online archiving, etc. Deletion settings to default folders. We recommend you use retention policies to protect content into SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, and 365 groups. So Microsoft has kind of been saying they've been moving away from this, but honestly, I still find a lot of value in this type of retention. Now, the scope of this retention is only Exchange. You're not going to it's not going to target any items in SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint sites, groups, any of that. It's only for Exchange mailboxes. And really where this shines is it allows you to have a different type of a policy for the different default folders. And by those default folders, I mean in inbox, sent items, deleted items, etc., right? And the way this works is you basically have a policy that is kind of a bundle of tags. So a tag kind of says what we're, what folder are we looking at and what are we going to do with it. So for example, I've got, 6 month, well, let's look at this 90 days deleted items delete. Remember, in my descriptions, I like to have what they, what it is, at a glance, I can say this is 90 days, it's targeted deleted items, and after that 90 days, it's going to delete the item. That's a tag. So if I look at this tag, and that's what it says, delete temporarily recoverable, because it will go into the deleted items, retention, etc. But that's exactly what this does. Now, if I want to then have maybe a let's see what I got here. So here's a 3-year inbox move to archive. So it doesn't delete, but basically I have, after 3 years, in my primary mailbox, it's going to move to an Exchange Online archive mailbox, right? So, and I won't get into a whole lot of that, but essentially when we look at these policies are a culmination of various tags. And so in this in here, I just have, 3-year sales mailbox archive, right? But here I maybe have, and these may be, knows we have sales and all of that. These could be targeted to do some adaptive or whatever. But let's look at this. Let's create a tag. So if I go in here and I create a new tag, and I'm going to call this 2-year inbox, and I'm going to say, we'll say archive. So all items in inbox older than 2 years will move to archive. Now, since we're moving it to archive, the users will have to have the archiving enabled. But in any case, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to create this tag. Now we're going to say, what are we going to do? Define how the tag can be applied. I'm going to automatically to default folder, okay? And here I can buy users to items and folders. So I can say, the user can apply the retention settings to custom folders that they maybe create. But in this case, I'm going to automatically apply it to a default folder. Now, I could have said this is just the entire mailbox. Everything, sent items, deleted items, everything gets the same tag. I didn't want to do that because for me, the whole point of this is I want to be able to apply a different policy to a different default folder, so like the inbox. So I'm going to apply this tag to the inbox. So I'm going to say next. Okay. When the items reach the following age in days, it's going to retain. So we said, 2 years. Okay. So we'll say, let's just say, I don't know. I'll say 670, just say, but how many days we're going to allow this, right? So I'm going to say next year. Now, by the way, I could have gone back and I said, what are we going to do? We're going to permanently delete, and allow recovery. So it's going to go into a soft delete first. And that's fine. That allows us to pull that back. And I generally tend to do that. So we're going to do that next. So that is basically our tag. We have a 2-year inbox archive. Okay. So that's fine. So that's a good tag. So then a new tag, I might say, deleted items folder, and maybe I'm going to say 30 days delete. Now, anything that's a deleted items folder, you go and delete something in your inbox, it goes to the deleted items folder. After 30 days, this tag would apply, because we're going to put it in a policy. I would apply this to a default folder. The default folder, here are your default folders. These are built in, right? So we're going to say deleted items. I'm going to go next here, and I'm going to say, how many days? We said 30 days, and we're going to delete and allow recovery. I tend to like to allow the recovery for that, and that is totally fine. You can opt to permanently delete it. It's just gone. But I'm going to say 30 days, so we're going to do a 30-day tag, submit. And so then we're going to say done here. Then let's just create one more tag real quick. Let's say sent items. the sent items 1 year. And this one here we'll do archive, because sometimes you might need to go back and look at those sent items. We'll say 1 year archive, give it a meaningful description, but we're just going to move on here. And I'm going to automatically apply, and I'm going to say sent items now. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say, and this is 365, so 1 year. Delete and allow recovery, but we're not. We're going to, actually on this one here, we cannot do, I take it back, we cannot do an archive on the sent items here. So we're going to go here next. What are we going to do? When it reaches, we're going to delete and allow recovery, and next, and that is it. We're going to submit. Now we've got some tags created. You can create as many tags as you want. You can have one tag for the entire mailbox, or you can have different tags for different parts of the mailbox, different default folders, etc. Now it's time to create a policy. So I'm going to create a policy, and let's just call this I don't know, let's just call this marketing MRM policy. We know it's exchange, so I can, but you can give it a good, decent a name. Now I'm going to add the tags. This policy is going to be made up of what tags? So we did an archive of 2 years in the inbox. We did, let's do deleted items 30 days. I need to check that, 2 years. There we go. So I got that. And then what else did we do? Sent items 1 year archive, right? So I got those 3 tags. I'm going to add those tags. That's it. So whoever I apply this policy to is going to basically get these policies are going to rule. Okay. We're going to go next, and I'm going to submit. Okay. Now, next step is to assign this policy. And to assign the policy, we can go to the Exchange. We can go to the Exchange Admin Center. I actually have that pulled up here. Let's just go here. Now, you're going to see that the default. I'm going to have this default MRM policy here. Okay. Now I have other retention policies. We'll talk about that in just a second, how they work. But if I'm going to go here and I want to change this policy, and I could change, here is my new marketing MRM policy. And by the way, you can do this in bulk. So if I have everybody here, and I want to do mailbox policies, and I want to do a retention policy for that, I can do this. So works out very well, where we can do that. We're not going to go ahead and apply that right now. Because generally speaking, I do tend to use the other retention policies, which are the retention policies combined with a retention label. I don't use MRM as much, but what if we have a conflict? Well, let's take a look real quick. We'll cover what happens if we have a label conflict. So you can apply more than one retention policy to the same content, okay? Unlike labels. But now, let's take a look at, by default, retention always takes precedence over deletion. So if you have a retention policy that says retain versus one that says delete, retention's going to win. The longest retention period wins. These two simple rules always decide how long an item is retained unless it's subject to priority cleanup. Now, we've not talked about priority cleanup, and maybe we'll do another video on that, but that might be needed to expedite permanent deletion for exceptional circumstances. Okay. There are a few more factors that determine an item. So here's basically some of the rules. Retention wins over deletion. If you have a retention policy and a deletion policy, retention's going to win. Longest retention period's going to win. Okay. Explicit wins over implicit. So if you call out a specific default folder or default location, and then there's that's going to win. So the explicit wins over that. And also the shortest deletion period wins. So if you have one that says 2 years delete and one that says 3 years delete, the shortest deletion period wins. So When you have an MRM policy, that policy or a retention policy, that policy will show up. Here. In this case, I'm doing a retention policy that's under adaptive scope. I'm not using the MRM policies, but it will show up there, and basically timestamp anything there. And then if you have an online archive, which I do not here, but like if we would see this online archive sitting down here, almost like an additional mailbox. So that is our third type of retention policy. Focuses on exchange. It's specific to, good use cases. You want certain folders within Exchange or email to have different retention, different periods of retention, or different actions, delete or retain. Then MRM might be the right solution for you. So that is that. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, and thanks for watching.